Hello, 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 everybody. Thank you for coming back, hey, for the second episode of the Sweet Lew Special. I really appreciate those that came in to watch my first episode. I'm going to be trying to do this again for like a couple episodes a week. With my current schedule, it is kind of hectic, but I'm doing the best that I can to get content out to you, to get my opinion, to get the conversation rolling. Because that is a real main goal of mine, because I believe that's where we find ourselves growing, and I really want to create an environment where everyone that has an opinion, or even opposing, same, whatever, we can get together and we can debate on these kind of topics and really get a community going, positive understanding, conversation, and that we can learn from each other, that's the most important thing, learning from each other, because I don't think that we do that much anymore. So again, I want to thank everyone for stopping by. So for today, there's going to be various topics that I want to talk about. I have one big one that is probably going to take a lot of the time, and it'll be interesting to get people's point of view on this, because it's a very delicate subject, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. And so, just to recap for everyone. Last week we had talked about Democrats trying to allow foreign nationals to vote in American elections, which I felt like it was a kind of a current 21st century version of the Three-Fifths Compromise. To me, that's the way that I felt about it. That's my interpretation, is that these people were being treated like cattle, and that they only want them to vote in order to get their numbers up for the Democrats. The university scandal was one that we talked about last week, and of course the awful shooting in New Zealand. So now to start with today's major topic, okay? So one thing that I really wanted to tap about, and something that kind of really motivated me to do this subject, is really about abortion. So I know that is a very sensitive subject for a lot of people, for everyone, really. I don't think anyone that's out there that does not have an opinion of some sort. Everyone does, and it's a big strife between left and right, and about morality, legality, and what really motivated me to talk about this specific subject was a class debate that I had yesterday, and the fellow students had done a debate on abortion, and I thought one student had a very, very valid argument. Always the same points that everyone always hears when it's someone from that has a conservative point of view about it, and the left's point of view of it, of the debate. Again, I don't know if she really fully wholeheartedly believed that way, which I'm sure she did. I think she had a passion for it, and I just felt that the argument for the gentleman who was part of the debate was very strong, and he brought up good, valid points, and I thought he did a really good job on it. And so it kind of motivated me to talk about this, because I really wanted to get, as people are getting to know me and my channel, that I want you to get an idea of where I stand on these major subjects and points. And so let's see here. And on these major subjects. Right. Okay, so first to start off here. Abortion to me, I feel, is in policy too, and legality of, really is a big gray area. That's the way that I feel about it. And the reason being is that there's other policies and other laws that I believe that it's either one or the other, and it really shouldn't be too much gray area. But this is the one subject and one legality, one law, one topic that I believe there is a gray area that we need to allow an exception for. And I feel that the abortion is okay only when it comes to the physical health and medical necessity to ensure the life and health of the mother, basically. So that's where my gray area stands. I believe that when it becomes a medical necessity to abort a child, I believe that will be okay. in order to save the life of the mother, because, preservation of life is, obviously important, and that's the whole point. And so, again, I feel like it should be allowed when it's deemed medically necessary. Now, that's another point of, like, how do we get about creating policy, creating, a system where we have a checks and balances of how do we get it deemed medically necessary? Who is the ones deeming it medically necessary? Is it one doctor, two doctors, a panel? Is it like going to have to be the same processes as trying to get a heart transplant? That is something that me as a medical professional, I can't give like a clear answer, but I believe that there does need to be a check and balances. I believe that, I don't find it completely inappropriate to say that two physicians need to come together in order to approve something as a medical necessity of an abortion. So, excuse me. So, again, I would like to get people's point of view on it. If you're watching and you have some kind of strong opinion on what you think that maybe is the appropriate way to go about it, please share. I would like to know. I think it would be very good to get a conversation going about, like, if you do agree on that path, if it's deemed that, medical necessary medically, then, how do you go about getting the correct steps and everything that's required for... Hold on, I'm sorry here. Anyway, so, leave the comments. I would like to know. I think this will be a good, start and debate point for this subject. So feel free to please comment and see if you have an idea, or like if you have a counter idea. But again, so also, I feel that it is extremely wrong, to terminate a child in womb, in utero, once it's found out that the child has any kind of like disability, such as like Down syndrome or any other disabilities that the child may have, because they get into being able to to place a needle inside the womb of the mother and then take a sample from the fetus and be able to find out. They were trying to do that with me when I was in utero, because my mother was older when she was having me, so there, the chances of having a child with Down syndrome or any other kind of birth defects was kind of high. And so when they placed the needle, I moved away, so they didn't get me. But but my mom stopped and was like, no, we're not going to do it. If it is what it is, then we're just going to live with it, And luckily I came out and okay for the most part. So, and she brought up a good point during that debate. It was about, like, what kind of quality of life is that when you find out that the child has a disability, cerebral palsy, any kind of, what kind of quality of life is that? And I don't find that point valid enough to say, well, the quality of life is bad, but my appreciation for life is so low that we'll just terminate. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's contradictory. Because the quality of life is going to be bad, but however, my appreciation for life is going to be non-existent here in this situation, so we'll just terminate. And the way that they go about terminating a child, and I believe is there's like two different categories, non-surgical and surgical, and it all has to do with depending on how long the gestation is, however long that the child is in utero. But from my understanding is that they go in and they cut the limbs, cut the head, and they extract the entire fetus out piece by piece, and it's it's pretty sad. Anyway, and so it really, by saying that in that argument, it really sends a point of, hey, we treat disabled people as like second class citizens. I don't find like, oh, what if the child has Down syndrome? Like, oh, someone's going to terminate. Like, no, that's not like that's not a valid point. It's not. You're saying that people with Down syndrome are below you. That that someone can't have a good quality of life by having Down syndrome, and it's saying that they're lesser citizens than others, and that's not true at all. And I firmly feel that we're living in a society today where we don't have that appreciation for life anymore. I mean, we see always in the news, get murders, kills, and the deaths, homicides, and stuff like that. And there's a lot of hate out there, man. There really is, and it's just humans are just violent people altogether. But I don't agree at any point that anyone with any kind of disability is a second class citizen. They have the same rights as everyone else. They have the right to live. They have the right to be happy, and they have the right to be free. And and I'm not saying that this is right for every family and every woman and couple or whoever is having children, because there's people out there that regardless of any kind of disability, they take the responsibility, and they take the fact, and they and they raise the child accordingly, and and there's people that have a lot of love for life, and another thing is that I know this is kind of, it can happen. I don't know how common it is. I couldn't find so much, and I think that back in the 70s this was more common, and then now not so much. But the only statistic I found was not about injuries, but more about the deaths during procedure. And I believe in 2015 there was like 4, compared to like the 70s there was double digits. It can happen. It's just like any other kind of surgical, procedure. That it all has risks of injuring, especially the mother. And so the statistic I found was not about injuries but about deaths. So I don't know the numbers about what the chances are of a woman having injuries, but there for sure there have been women that have gone in to have those procedures, and then something happens and they're not able to have children anymore. And in a way it's them being punished for them wanting to terminate the child based off of not necessity, but based off of convenience. And that's the word I'm only going to use here a couple times. Now, again, I'm not pointing blame. I'm not saying that that's the case, but it does happen. And it's something to be aware of, that, it's just like any other medical procedure that has risks, and so it's another point to, to think about. So here's the statistics I did found. Now, according to the Guttmacher Institute, as of January 2018, now the 3 most common reasons, now each cited by 3/4 of patients, were concerned for, now these are the reasons why that people are having abortions, okay, were concerned for or responsibility to other individuals, the inability to afford raising a child, and the belief that having a baby would interfere with work, school, or the ability to care for dependents, and have said they did not want to be a single parent or were having problems with their husband or partner. So basically what that's saying is that you think that the majority of abortions are for women that are victims of rape, or that it's a medical necessity, when it's not the case at all. The numbers for reasons that have been reported, which show very strong support towards what I thought it was, to me, and I think that it's very disgusting. It is not the majority of reasons why people getting abortions is not because of medical necessity, but it's because of convenience, and it's because of quality of their own life. Either they already have children and they want to terminate the next one because 3 kids is too much, so why bring in a 4th? And and there's a very, very good percentage of them are married women, which it's less than half. The majority of women that do get abortions are single women, and or they're like, oh, I'm in school, I can't afford to take care of a child right now, or I don't want to have a child right now, I'm just starting my career, and these are all reasons of convenience. And it brings up a good point of how I feel about where we're going at today with this, and what kind of ideology that we're promoting in our society today. And it's about comfortability, it's about the selfish reasons of ourselves, and that if I go out and carelessly have sex unprotected with either someone I don't know, someone I do know, someone I'm not supposed to, whatever, the reason is that my irresponsible behavior can be fixed easily by the government, or by my insurance provider, or by basically just terminating a child. And that's what I don't agree with. And I believe that a good way to fix this issue is just more education, more education, more education. And that's not even going to be solving 100% of the problem. You have to understand that. And you have to be realistic and flexible enough to know that there is going to be, there are, leaks in the system, But however, the whole point is to try to limit the numbers. Now, I tried to think of it in the flip side. If it was not legal, what would our society be looking like today? Would that mean, because it is going to happen, unintentional pregnancies have always been happening during mankind, and is going to continue to happen as mankind exists. And are we being selfish by saying, no, we can't legalize this based off of necessity, is it really impossible for any woman to bounce back from a setback of having a child and not becoming financially successful? It's not impossible. Plenty of women have done it. Many, many women have done it. And it's just, but then again, you have to live with the consequences of your actions. We can't be bailing out everybody just because of, poor decisions. You have to take a little bit of responsibility and point the finger at yourself sometimes and say, hey, I screwed up, and I got to live with this, and I got to do the right thing. I've learned from this setback, and moving forward, I'm not going to make the same mistakes. But that's not how people look at things. They look at it as, I screwed up, it's someone else's fault, I'm going to place the blame on something or someone else so that I don't look like a jackass, and and point the finger at someone else, which I don't agree. And so I got some more statistics here, some more numbers to share with everyone. Now, these are a little bit outdated numbers. These are numbers from 2004, and I got these off of the abort73.com. And they claim that the Guttmacher Institute had reported from 2004 the following numbers. Now, I can, let's see if I can probably, see if I can find the same page. That way I can share it with everyone so that they can see. Here we go. Found it. And it's these numbers right. Okay, and so these are the numbers. Again, it says here on the 2004, the Guttmacher Institute had reported the following. So less than 0.5% victims of rape. These are the reasons again. 3% fetal health problems. 4% physical health problems. I assume of the physical health of the mother. 4% would interfere with education or career. 7% not mature enough to raise a child. 8% don't want to be a single mother. 19% done having children. So basically saying, like, I already have enough, I don't want any more. More from, like, married women, I'm sure. 23% can't afford a baby. 25% not ready for a child, and 6% other, which could be various reasons. And this was nationwide, across the country, reported. And yeah, the one number that got me was this one. And I think that these are good eye-opening stats that everyone, I think, needs to see, needs to hear, needs to understand. And this is from the state of Florida. And it says in 2015 there were 71,740 abortions in the state of Florida. Really high. This number lists each reason and percentage. So 0.001%. The pregnancy resulted from an incestuous relationship, meaning brother, sister, whatever, cousin, family member, poly father, daughter, something like that. Illegal. Probably, more than likely. Anyway, the woman's life was endangered by the pregnancy at a 0.065%, which, that's very serious. 0.085%, the woman was raped. 0.288%, the woman's physical health was threatened by the pregnancy. 0.294%, the woman's psychological health was threatened by the pregnancy. That's an interesting one. 0.666%, there was serious fetal abnormality. 6.268%, the woman aborted for social or economic reasons. And then 92.330%, no reason, elective. They just chose to be like, yep, okay, that's appropriate. I'm just going to have an abortion. We'll call it quits. Pretty shocking numbers, in my opinion. Quite sad. And I could pull up the entire numbers of how many abortions there were just in the last year. Each day in the U.S., they say every year in the world there are an estimated 40 to 50 million abortions. This corresponds to approximately 125,000 abortions per day, and that's according to WHO, the World Health Organization. And it's quite unfortunate, and you think about that's that's a lot, and I believe there was over 900,000 abortions in the United States just this last year, and and through these numbers and through what I found, you get the impression that it's just basically having an abortion based off of convenience. And there are people out there that have multiple. There's a big number of those that have had an abortion prior, so they're not strangers to it. They feel like, oh, I screwed up. I don't want this. I don't have the mental capacity to know how to perform safe sex, so I can get it fixed by just going to a clinic, and that's something that I just completely disagree with. Everyone needs to be responsible in everything that they do, and understand that there are consequences, both positive and negative, to what you do. And I just don't find it fair to go in and to abort a baby just because of your reckless behavior. And I don't think that the numbers have grown since 2000, between the years of 17 and 18. I think they decreased a little bit from what I found. So, it shows that there's some education, but you have to understand, just in the past 5 years, man, millions and millions of fetuses and babies were aborted. Millions. And it's just crazy to me to think about it like that. I know that I'm telling you from my point of view, from what I look at it as, that if I had gotten a woman pregnant and she decided to abort, I would be extremely furious. extremely fierce. It would go against everything that I believe in, and I would say, hey, if you can't take care of it, adoption is a option, and or I'll take care of the child by myself. To me, because like I value the life, and to me, I would never consider having my significant other have an abortion ever. It would just be completely crushing for me to think of it like that. But and I know that pro-choice people, they argue that women have the right to do what they want with their bodies, and yes, they are right. They can do whatever they want, to the point of, committing, until you commit a crime, found guilty, and you have to go to jail. Then the government can tell you what you can do with your body. You know what I mean? So, and I'm all for it, but however, that doesn't mean that you can go and out and you should promote a lifestyle of having irresponsible, unprotected sex all the time and think that you can just get bailed out easily from it. That I don't agree with. And yeah, you can if you want. I mean, technically, it's a free country. You can go out and try to get HIV, which there are people that do that. There are bug seekers out there and that try to go out and get contracted with the HIV or any kind of other diseases. I mean, you have the right, but you're going to have to live with the consequences of your actions. You're going to have to live with it. So, but, to say that the government has to pay for your reckless behavior, that we have to cover for all of your... I mean, there's some things, I guess, that we should cover due to mistakes, because people make mistakes. People are not going to stop making mistakes. And, but we're talking about life or death here. And it's... I mean, you can argue as much as you want about, like, when does life actually begin in the womb? I mean, it should be quite obvious of when, and it's kind of weird that we have to argue about it. It's when the blood enters the body, or is it when the heart starts? Man, every cell in your body is a living organism. I mean, like, is sperm dead? No, I mean, it's alive. It's very well alive. And a woman's eggs are very, very well alive. They're cells, just like anything else in the body. Everything's alive. So, I mean, you can argue about it however you want. I'd like to get your guys' opinion on it, because it'll be interesting to know when you think that life really starts. So, because to me that would be kind of interesting to, to get your guys' point of view on it. So, where are we at here? Oh, okay, nice, not bad. All right, so, and which comes up to the next point, about like when we can, people say that, I can do what I want with my body, and yes, you can, and in a way, the government can tell you what you could do with your body too, and there's a draft, they can tell you where to go, but in a way, I guess, and you have the right to break the law if you want, and whatever, I had to do what I was told in the Army, so technically I couldn't get sunburns, and to the point of, I couldn't do self-injury without getting punished for it, or any kind of unintentional injury, or, what I mean, where I couldn't perform my duties, like a sunburn. I guess that, that shit's real. I've never seen anyone get in trouble for that, but, it can happen. And again, people are convicted of crimes, they're told what to do with their body. And if you try to commit suicide, you get committed. Or you can. Not always. There's a possibility. And I just think, it is a good, valid argument, I would say on their point that, a woman could do whatever she wants with her body. I could do whatever I want with my body. Yeah, true. I can get tattoos. I can get whatever, But, again, it comes back to, well, you just have to live with the consequences. Why should you rely on someone else to really bail you out for making the same mistake over and over again? and then it comes to the next point, and New York State allowing late-term abortions, and this is something that I have, like, I would say that it's a legitimate fear of. I like to get other people's point of view on that, but on this one, late-term abortion. So basically, in the state of New York, and I'm sure like a lot of people out there already know this one, that the Cuomo, was it Cuomo? Yeah, Governor Cuomo, I believe is his name. Anyway, he allowed and he signed into law after the state had approved this of late-term abortions, where when it is deemed medically necessary to save a woman's life, that they can go up to 9 months and terminate the child. And at that point, if it's like on the 3rd trimester, a child can be born safely at month 7. Have to be put on steroids for their lungs to continue to develop and that they can breathe on their own. 8 months, fairly easy, limited complications, and 9 months, obviously, limited to no complications of the child surviving. And I would think that, man, to me, it just seems kind of out there of, well, I mean, like, I want to know examples, because I can't think of any, and I haven't looked it up, so I really want to get your guys' point of view on this one. Is, like, what kind of situation would it have to be to save a mother's life, or like what's going on with the mother to deem it necessary to terminate a child at 8 or 9 months? What could happen where we have to say, okay, we need to kill this baby at this point at 8 months in order to save the mother's life? I mean, is that what they're talking about, or are they saying that deeming it medically necessary because the child has a disability? Or are they saying that the child is stillborn? I don't get that one. I couldn't see that last one. No, maybe my mind's just wandering a little bit too much. But I would really like to know, in what kind of hypothetical situation would it be deemed necessary in order to save a person's life to terminate a child at 7, 8, or 9 months in the 3rd trimester? That's what I want to know, because maybe you guys will have an example and maybe know a little bit better than me. But to me, I just can't find any kind of good, valid reason why that would be acceptable, and not yet. I just don't. I can't think of one. And to me, and this comes to a legitimate fear of mine, of where I think that we're going with our policies and thinking like this, is that if we say that it is okay from the state of New York to say it's okay to have late-term abortions in the 3rd trimester up to the 9th month in order to save the mother's life when deemed medically necessary, what state is next to follow suit with that? And I'm sure it's going to happen. I have a great prediction, of that if New York did it, another state's going to do it, and then another state's going to do it. What's it going to be next? Massachusetts is going to say that it's okay. California will say it's okay. Usually New York and California are side to side on their political beliefs, and they usually follow suit. I mean, I got California love on my arm because that's where I was born and raised. So I do have the feelings of California, although I don't live there currently, and nor do I have any intentions of going back there anytime soon. But who's going to be next? Who's going to be next to say the same thing? What state's going to be allowing late-term abortions next? It's going to happen. You just know it. I have that feeling. I can say almost 100% that it is going to happen. Now what's next after that? Let's say it starts following suit and be like, okay, now we can have late-term abortions in the 15, 20 years from now. It's not going to be an uncommon topic, nor will it be an uncommon procedure. Just like gestation up to 24 weeks, abortions are okay now. And not all clinics do that. There's certain clinics and they pick and choose due to state law and so, and stuff like that. But really though, what could be next after that? Late-term abortions is this newest and upcoming thing. 10, 15 years from now, when we have the left and extreme left, is what I'm getting at. Extreme left, not like all the left, but extreme, the alt left. What are they going to say? Is that it's okay to euthanize the disabled? You know, what's going to stop them from trying to rationalize in their minds to say that, okay, well, we can terminate a child that has a disability up to that 9 months. What's going to say, well, this child is 6 months old, you know, post-birth, he's got Down syndrome, I don't want him anymore, and euthanize him. You know what I mean? And I believe there was this argument where this man with Down syndrome had made a speech to Congress, or maybe it was at a state and maybe federal, I can't remember at what level. But, you know, he basically was saying, and he was a very good speech, you know, and with his ability to try to speak and you know, and read. And when it was very good, you know, he did a very good job at saying it. And I urge you guys to try to find the video. But it was basically this man with Down syndrome, and he was making the point that, like, we are not second-class citizens. We are people, too. And just because we have Down syndrome and we have disabilities, you know, it doesn't mean that we can't live life, you know. And he was against the testing of fetuses in womb to find out if they had Down syndrome or any kind of disabilities. You know, like I said before, my mom had done it, but like I moved out of the way when the needle came in, and so she was like, well, if you did that, then there's nothing wrong, you know. But you know, and I get it that she had a legitimate reason. She was in her 40s and stuff. So, but anyway, and so that's, you know, that's what he was talking about, you know, and I completely agree. Just because someone has a disability doesn't mean that they're second-class citizens. You know, they're not. You know, they just require a little bit more than the average person. And sometimes the average person, you know, requires a lot of help too. No one's perfect here, you know. And then we're going to start using the broad term of disability. Like, the majority of people in the world have some kind of mental illness, you know, mental setback of, you know, anxiety, depression of some sort, you know. And so what, you're just going to label everyone as disabled at that point? So like it's just opening the gates for something more down the road and something worse. I have that feeling, you know. And say what you want, you know. And I got friends, you know, they'll say like, you know, it's the same thing with what the Nazis did in Germany, Nazi Germany. You know, they euthanized the disabled. You know, and they had a big thing about Joseph Mengele. You know, he had a big thing about twins, and he did a lot of experiments on pregnant women and stuff like that. So that, you know, that's because, like, I don't see like why that wouldn't be the next argument for the alt left to euthanize them. You know, they say like, well, we can just get rid of them now. You know. I mean, there's people out there that already dump them off in homes. You know, they don't want to take the personal responsibility, and I get it. Sometimes it's hard, you know, and it's all on a case by case situation. And you know, and I hate to say it, but some people just don't have the amount of love as others do. They don't have the ability to understand or really care for and work with those that are disabled. So because it's hard. One person with a disability, I mean, it can really change your life. And not just your life, but everyone in your family. You know, husband, wife, and the other, maybe other children that you have. I mean, it's hard work. But, you know, when you persevere and you continue, you know, you learn things. You know, I grew up with a father that became disabled after I was born. And so I've had to, I've learned to take care of him and be understanding of others that are in the same situation, you know. And I'm not going to go far in depth about his situation, but like I can empathize. I really can. I can sympathize with them. It's not easy, and it can be very frustrating. But sometimes it's the right thing to do. Life is just not going to be easy unless you're born in privilege, economic privilege, that is, and it's just not. I mean, even then, you can debate whether life's never going to be easy. You're always going to have to work for something, one way or another. You're always going to have to struggle, and it's just the way it is, you know. And you have to take those setbacks, and you have to take those moments in life and those situations, and instead of just really getting angry about it and getting frustrated about it, take those setbacks and learn from it. Don't take those setbacks and let it just fester to make you a worse person, to like really dwell on it. Take it, step back a moment, because it's okay to take a knee. You know, it's okay to raise your hand and say, I need help. Or, you know, it's okay to go out and seek help. It's fine. It's okay. You know, it really is. And, you know, just like anything else in life, you know, sometimes you have to take a breather, you know, sometimes, but you have to persevere. You always have to keep moving forward. You know, you're going to get knocked back sometimes, but you always got to get back up and keep moving forward. You know, and that's what it, and, you know, and that's the perseverance that it takes to, you know, raise someone with a disability, to the, you know, depending on the disability and stuff. So, okay, yeah, and then it comes to my last point about this. It might be my last point unless I come up with something else. So, you know, and feminists and left-wing individuals, they have, you know, they come up with the point of, you know, and I'm all for this part, you know, I'm all for, you know, empowering women, you know, feminists, and, you know, and I agree and I understand why they fight for what they fight for. I understand why they stand up for what they do, because for many, many years, I mean, it wasn't until not even 100 years ago yet where women were allowed to vote, you know, not even 100 years yet. I believe it was 1920, 1919. So maybe it's coming up on the 100 years. But, you know, women were subjectified for a long, long time. And I get it. I get why. But this is 2019. Women are empowered now. You know, they're doing everything that we're doing, that men are doing. Great. It's awesome. I'm all for it, man. And I understand why they're doing what they're doing. But however, what I feel and what I view as the hypocrisy of these, you know, of their stance on abortion, you know, and some of them are even like making signs like, oh, my abortion was fine, thank you for asking, or like, you know, or they gloat about having multiple abortions. I just don't get in the process of, you know, they want to empower women, you know, they're all about the society of women in the future of America, but yet they go around and they destroy and they kill the future women of America before they're even born. You know what I mean? So, like, if they're all for it, then why terminate a child? Why terminate the future women of America? You know, if you're all for it, and you know, and I believe there's even some women out there that would even terminate if they're only having a boy, and they'll only keep it if it's a girl. You know, there's people out there just have like this mentality that it's just out of this world. You know, and to me, when I hear stuff like that, and I don't, you know, and I'm sure it's true because people are just, they can be out, you know, out of left field. You know, I find it counterproductive, and I find it very hypocritical, you know, them saying, you know, like empowering women, but yet we're going to be okay with aborting the future women of America. And I'm all against that. You know, I believe it's hypocritical and very counterproductive of what they're doing. And that, you know, and as I said last week, we're finding ourselves in a position here in society where we no longer appreciate life. We don't, man. You know, like, I don't know what kind of environment, like the Parkland shoot or any of the other mass shooters, I don't know like what kind of environment or societal structure that they grew up in, or you know, it's just like I feel, but I think that's just humanity, you know. Maybe it's not just like a society so much, but it is. But maybe now that as technology is advancing and that media, that we consume so much more media now, and that we're not living in the Stone Age of like 200 years ago where we can only read our news from the newspaper that we get maybe once a month, or get our updates from word of mouth of people's storytelling, you know, and stuff like that, or get, you know, a good picture from reading books. But now that we consume so much more media today, we consume TV, we consume Netflix, we consume Facebook, we consume so much different types of media that, we're just bombarded with a lot of hate, a lot of death, and it just becomes a big part of life now. Movies, music, and it's just like we're teaching our youngsters that, that this is okay and that this is a part of life, which in a way it is, and I get that some of the artists and some of the movies are trying to open your mind to what the truth is out there in certain areas of the world, certain areas of the United States. But, we go about that there's just a lot of violence in the media that we consume, and that there's not much, and that, it's hard. It's hard. And, people just desire comfortability, at the expense of others. And it's quite unfortunate. And, we just need to take that personal responsibility, and educate parents and educate families, educate everyone, really. And you have to understand that education and learning, it really should never stop. You should always be out there trying to yearn for more information, yearn to, become aware of what goes on, anything, really. To think that just because you're done with school, that you're done with learning, is just, it's ignorance. You should always, people learn at different paces. People learn at different ways. And, we just need to find a way, a system that, where we need to be aware of how we are feeding violence in our media, and try to teach others and stuff like that. So last thing, so that's going to be it about the abortion talk. I know we talked about, a good bit about it. We're going on 48 minutes now, so we'll say about 45 minutes probably talking about the abortion and my stance on it. And again, it would be very interesting to know what your guys' stance on it, what your point of view, and the questions that I asked during this cast. If you can share some of that information, they'll be very grateful. I would be very grateful and appreciative of it. Now, the next thing, and this is probably going to be the last thing that we're going to talk about, as I mentioned last week, I'm going to just mention her as AOC, or Alpha Charlie. But I'll say her name just once for everyone to understand who I'm talking about: Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, abbreviated AOC, or as I'm going to refer to her probably from here on out for the rest of this episode, is Alpha Charlie. I'm just going to call her Alpha Charlie. I think, I just want to be a little bit different. So, as everyone knows, so Congresswoman, representative, out of New York's 14th district, very socialistic point of views, right? And so the biggest topic that came out, and we'll go off of the New York Times here, because I think this is, New York Times is okay to report, especially when it's talking about a Democrat. So basically the headline says, Alpha Charlie is top villain in Amazon pullout poll finds. So from, and I've been reading some conservative news points of it, so this will be interesting to read this point of view of it. And it's basically saying that so if in case you didn't know, Amazon was going to build a new headquarters out there in Long Island, I believe it is, somewhere in New York City. And the governor was on it, the mayor of New York was on it. They wanted Amazon to come in, and the whole point was that they were going to come in, build this new headquarters building, and they're going to provide a few thousand jobs to local New Yorkers, And I get that this point too, that they said, well, not everyone that is going to get hired into this building is going to be from New York City. Obviously, they're going to bring some outside, employees out of the state, which still is going to be fine. Even if you brought in transplants, they're still going to, pay taxes and boost your economy by spending their money where they live, right? Anyway, the whole point was that they were going to build this headquarters here, over there, and so they were trying to work out a deal, and you have to understand that this is a deal of Amazon wants to get the best kind of bang for their buck, and they were going to. The deal was that if they built there, they were going to spend. Amazon was going to spend about $30 billion in like tax revenue amongst this a time frame, and I don't know the exact time frame because it couldn't have been 30 billion just in 1 year. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's not the case. Over a time frame, and so they came up with a deal saying that instead of $30 billion in tax breaks, if you build here, we'll give you $3 billion in, off. We'll just cut off, 10%. So you have to pay 10% less in tax revenue. And so Amazon was like, hell yeah, we're going for it. And so some of the representatives in Congress had nixed it. They kind of put a stop to it, I believe. And the one that was really headlining that one was Alpha Charlie. Alpha Charlie wanted, she came out, basically said on the to camera, oh, this was a great victory for us. We really showed that the people could come together against a big corporate giant like this, and that the people can win. And so when asked about like the $3 billion break, she's like, well, we could take to the effect of, not the exact words, please. So to the effect of, she said that, well, instead of giving it to this big corporation that already has lots of money, and is claiming that, Amazon really treats their employees bad, we could take that $3 billion and the government could provide them jobs. And I think that I don't know how the hell she didn't get that in her mind, or like where she thought about that. But like, there was no $3 billion in existence. The point was that they were going to get $3 billion cut off of the total tax break. So the state was going to receive $27 billion, and instead they're going to receive nothing because it got nixed. And so, and that's the thing about the socialist point of view, and they view that every corporation that's like a multi-billion-dollar corporation is evil, that they're bad, that there's nothing right that they can do, and that we need to, completely destroy the free market and the and capitalism, and but like, you have to understand, look at the big point of it though. Jeff Bezos, he really started it from nothing. He was selling textbooks online when the internet was starting to boom in the 90s. And like, he took it, and through his intelligence and through his risk taking and entrepreneurship, he turned something from so small into something as giant as an Amazon. And that's what our country really feeds off, and that's what we try to promote, So like, can you really blame him for wanting to be completely successful and build an empire such as big as Amazon? There's so many people out there trying to do that of their own brand, but not everyone can be successful, and not everyone is successful. And they were going to bring in billions of dollars in revenue, in tax revenue for the state. They were going to bring in jobs for the people. People with jobs pay taxes. People with jobs also spend their money in the area that they live in, promoting the local small businesses and boosting the economy. Like, this all trickles down into, like, it's not just good for the big cat, and it's, it's good for everyone in between, from the small to the top, and like, and for her to think that there was $3 billion in existence, and to say, and to make that comment, like, where is she? I mean, like, where is she thinking? And I get it that I'm sure that she's got like, the biggest heart, and that she's trying to do her best for people, but it's not working. And and then we wonder, how did this person actually get into politics? How did this person actually get into an elected, get elected? And I think I have a simple answer for you on that one. And the reason why is that, we talk about her so much, the media covers her so much. There's that saying that there's no such thing as bad publicity. And we've really glorified her, and then you got some of the conservatives, and then some of the liberals that are criticizing her, and like just feeding it, man. You're just feeding the monster on this. And I get it, that as I'm talking about it, I know I'm going against what I'm saying. But I feel that, this needs to be put out there at this point. And anyway, the point that I'm getting at now, because I'm going on a rant, is that what came out yesterday is that Alpha Charlie's approval rating had just dipped a lot. And her constituents are calling her a villain of New York because of this, because now they're realizing that she costed them jobs, potential jobs. And they brought up a good point about, like, why is it now that that is dipping? And someone brought up a good point that it comes to being aware of, like, current events. And I believe that a lot of the constituents out there and a lot of New Yorkers were really not aware of everything that Alpha Charlie was standing for. And then now that, hey, they see the big effect of what happened with the Amazon deal, now they're starting to look into it. Now they're starting to give her a little bit more attention, and that her polls and her approval rating has just been plummeting. And I believe there's only been one positive demographic, and that was women between the ages of 20 and 34, something like that. That's what I read. But anyway, it says right here, and this is from the New York Times, 38% of voters faulted the Congresswoman for the deal's demise, identifying her as a villain. Local activists in Queens were labeled villains by 34% of voters. In the New York City suburbs, 50% of voters blamed Miss Alpha Charlie. Upstate, the number was 40%. In the 5 boroughs, it was 29%. A spokesman for Alpha Charlie declined to comment on the poll. Yeah. And then she made some tweets. Let's see if we can find those tweets, and this will probably be like one of the last things we'll talk about. Oh yeah, let's see if we can find them. Because she went on some kind of rant about... that was an hour ago. Okay, that's nice. Because this had to have been yesterday, I should put. Oh boy, I'm trying to find you the actual tweet here that she made. Here we go. Found it. And so here, I'm gonna show it to you guys. I think this is important to show. Be kind of interesting. Oops, not that one. I needed. What? Here we go. All right, so she posted, what was it, March 16th, so 3 days ago. If you want to know what subconscious bias looks like, it's a headline saying AOC is underwater with every group except women, non-whites, and 18 to 34-year-olds. So older conservative white men are considered everyone, and everyone else is discounted as an exception. Cool. What? Okay. If that's what you think, and that's unfortunate. She's got 3.59 million followers. That's crazy. You get people from the West Coast all over that are like showing support for this woman, but and again, costing people jobs. It doesn't have a basic understanding of what, the capitalism here in the United States really stands for. The reason people know more is because Fox News has turned into AOC TMZ. No offense to TMZ. So awareness is growing with GOPers. Jane Meyer, New Yorker, has reported deeply on this propaganda machine, and it will be aimed at any Dem they want. Nothing changes that. We can't be scared by that. So again, she's commenting about, like, why is it now that a lot of people are becoming aware of what's going on. And I think it's just trickling down because now they're starting to see the effects of not having Amazon get there. So now they're opening up their computers and trying to get a little bit more involved in understanding of what's going on. So, great episode. That's going to wrap it up here. I really appreciate everyone that's going to stop by and take a look at this. I'm going to try to do these 2-3 times a week. I'm going to let everyone else know too. This weekend on Friday night, Pacific Standard Time. I don't even have an exact time, but Friday night. If you guys are available and anyone that's watching, we're going to do an episode, the next episode of the Northwest Cali Boys. That is kind of what I call it for my buddy Jake and I. He's going to be coming by. We're going to do another recording. In case you guys haven't watched any of the Northwest Cali Boys episodes, we really take about, they're pretty long, they could be about I think the longest one we did was 5 hours, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe 4 hours and some change. But in case you guys haven't watched it before, I really suggest, stopping by. I'm going to be posting it live here on YouTube, and I'll have the video on there, of course, and we're going to be recording Friday night, this Friday, which is, so that you guys are clear, and make it the 22nd of March. And we talk about lots of various different things, and we're going to have some good topics this Friday. We're going to talk about people that are moving out of California, some of these local newspapers that we get, because, by the school that we go to, and some of the stuff that they have to say in there, which I find very kind of offensive. Anyway, we'll get over that. We're going to have various topics, and the things that we talk about is politics, current events. We talk about, about life, man. We talk about various different things, things that we believe in, and we get into deep conversations about it. We got a couple people that watch it, and they've really enjoyed it, and we have fun with it. Even though I try to take my my podcast, the Sweet Lew Special, I try to have a serious tone with it and really get my point across and my point of view and really rant. To me, I find it's very therapeutic for me to really share my ideas, and I look forward to grow on this podcast and get a lot of people involved. Again, that's really my goal. My big goal is to get people involved, and make this a real nice learning experience for everyone. But again, Northwest Cali Boys, because my buddy, he's from Jake. Jake, he's from Hayward. I'm from Sacramento, but we live up here in the Pacific Northwest. So, and again, we talk about, various different things. We're going to try to, if we got time, we'll bring people here on Skype and get their voices on there. And well, the first episode, we interviewed a buddy of his and talked about some funny stories, growing up out there in California. And last week, 2 weeks ago already, or a week and a half ago already, we talked about various different things. Reincarnation, talked about Alex Jones on the Joe Rogan Experience. So lots of different stuff, man. And I really hope that you guys will stop by. It's Tuesday. I'm going to try to get another episode, hopefully in by Thursday. We'll see. And my time is going to be varying. Like today, we're here. It's 10:58 Pacific time in the morning. Probably another time in the week, we're going to be doing it late. I'll try to get something tomorrow. It all depends on what comes up and what I feel motivated to talk about. So, and again, we can talk about different subjects that you guys want to comment about. But hey, if you're watching, thank you for stopping by. Subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Leave comments. Let's have some good discussions and enjoy life, man. Eh? Oh, and let's finish this off with a motivational quote. All right, and let's say, quitting is not falling down. Quitting is falling down and not getting back up. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.